Hello, I'm Saul Muerte, and welcome back to Occult Echoes. In this month's Library of the Occult, we explored Philip Bonewits' Real Magic, an extraordinary attempt to understand magic not as fantasy, but as a system. Bonewits believed that if magic exists, it should possess rules, patterns, principles, something that could be studied rather than simply believed. Today's novel takes that idea in a very different direction. Thomas Olde Heuvelt's Hex asks a deceptively simple question. What if magic only has power because people believe it does? At first glance, Hex appears to be a modern folk horror novel, as an isolated Dutch town finds itself haunted by the Black Rock witch, Catherine van Weiler, whose eyes and mouth are sewn shut. She wanders the town endlessly, appearing in kitchens, bedrooms, schools, living rooms. She's simply there. The townspeople have grown accustomed to her presence. Children barely react. Adults quietly move her along when she blocks a doorway. Life continues, except there are rules, lots of rules. The witch cannot simply be ignored. She must be managed, watched, contained. The town has built its entire existence around expecting those rules. And that's where Hex becomes far more interesting than a simple ghost story. One of the recurring ideas in Bonewits' Real Magic is that magical systems possess structure. Magic isn't random, it operates according to principles. Whether discussing ritual, symbols, or psychic phenomena, Bonewits repeatedly argues that ignorance is dangerous. You don't play with electricity without understanding electricity. Why would magic be any different? Hex feels almost like a fictional case study of that argument. The town doesn't necessarily understand the witch, but they understand enough to know that the rules exist for a reason. The horror begins when those rules are questioned. One line in particular that stayed with me throughout the novel: a father remarks that magic is only real if people believe in it. It's an easy line to overlook, but I think it's actually the philosophical heart of the book. Because what exactly does belief do? Does it create reality? Or does it simply shape our experience of reality? Bonewits would probably argue that belief is one component within a much larger system. Heuvelt suggests something slightly different. Belief itself becomes part of that magic. The town isn't simply haunted by the witch, it's haunted by generations of shared belief, shared fear, shared rituals, shared stories. Whether Catherine's power comes from supernatural forces or collective psychology almost becomes irrelevant. The effect is the same. One thing I particularly appreciated about Hex is its exploration of community. Most horror isolates its protagonists. Hex traps an entire town. Everyone participates, everyone shares that secret, and everyone understands the consequences. This transforms the witch into something larger than a monster. She becomes part of the town's identity, an inherited burden, almost a religion. Now, if I'm being honest, Hex wasn't a novel that completely gripped me. I admired it more than I loved it. There were moments where the pacing slowed, and I occasionally found myself wanting the story to move more decisively. But stepping back after finishing the novel, I found myself appreciating its ideas more than its plot. Because beneath the horror lies a fascinating exploration of belief. Not belief as faith, belief as social agreement. The entire town survives because everyone agrees to play by the same rules. The true horror emerges when that agreement begins to fracture. This is where the conversation with real magic becomes particularly interesting. Bonewits spends hundreds of pages trying to establish whether magic possesses objective principles. He approaches the occult almost scientifically. Hex isn't interested in proving anything. Instead, it asks what happens when an entire community organizes itself around the assumption that magic is real. Whether the supernatural exists almost becomes secondary. The consequences certainly do. I also think Hex speaks to something much larger than witches. Throughout history, we've created systems of belief to explain the unknown. Religions, folklore, superstitions, occult traditions, even science itself is a system built upon observation and shared understanding. What fascinates Heuvelt is how communities preserve those systems across generations. Stories become traditions, traditions become rules, rules become identity. Eventually, nobody remembers where the rules came from, only that breaking them carries terrible consequences. Perhaps that's why Hex feels like such an appropriate companion to real magic. Bonewits asks whether magic has rules. Heuvelt imagines a world where everyone accepts those rules without fully understanding them. Together they suggest something surprisingly profound. Magic may not begin with spells. It may begin with stories. Stories we repeat, stories we inherit, stories powerful enough to shape reality itself. The occult has always occupied the space between certainty and mystery, between knowledge and belief, between exploration and faith. Both real magic and Hex remind us that perhaps the greatest power isn't magic itself. Perhaps it's our willingness to believe. I'm Saul Muerte. The Echo continues. Ancient Shadows, Modern Stories.